Okay, so without further delays, let's get started. Okay, so overview of the authorization methodology. So as most of you might be knowing that in the SAP side, in SAP GUI, we use something called as a transaction code. Okay, and transaction code basically is then further divided or further grouped into a logical thing which is called as a role. Okay, and role are further classified into multiple types. We can have a single role, we can have a master role, we can have composite role. I'll quickly touch upon the different categories and different types of the roles that are available. So for example, the master role, these all are the roles that are given by SAP and also that has not get any limitations from a master data point of view or from organization, from business centers, cost center point of view. Once there are certain restrictions in place, certain authorizations, restrictions in place, then master roles are further divided to make a single role. And the logical grouping of those single roles to create a role which is more specific to a business title, to a persona, is then called as a composite role. Okay, now onto the right hand side, you can see there can be a segregation of duty aspect. A segregation of duty is something where more than one conflicting activity is assigned to one user. Okay, meaning we are not following a maker and a checker concept, and that arises mainly because of the rule set. So the kind of rule set that we have in the system is specific to a particular organization, to a particular geography, the kind of nature of business that a company deals in. Uh, they decide on a rule set which decides the composition and the toxic combinations that creates the issue. So there can be two types of issues, segregation of duty issues. It can come from a one single or a composite role, meaning the role itself has those conflicting or then one or conflicting transactions within itself, or when we assign more than one role, be it a single or a composite role, then more than one role also creates segregation of duty conflict at a user level. So those are the two typical type of SOD conflict that arises in the system, one at the role level and one at the user level. Okay. Now, why do we need to redesign a role? Okay, so here is a classic example of a P2P cycle, an end-to-end cycle of procure to pay, which starts from a vendor master creation and ends at the bank reconciliation after the payment. Okay, so this typical P2P cycle is further divided into different processes and different sub processes, and on those sub processes we then define the possible SOD conflict based on the kind of activity that a user is supposed to perform. So for example, a vendor master creation and a PR creation ideally should be segregated. A vendor master creation and PO creation should be segregated. That is a typical SOD rule, which is out of the box available from SAP side, as well as most of the industries who has the procurement process enabled also use that SOD conflict. Okay, so then why do we need a role redesign? So to overcome anything related to the segregation of duty conflict, we do a role redesign, or that is also sometimes called as a remediation project, that is typically confirmed and operated after there is an internal audit in the organization or after there has been an external audit and there were certain findings with respects to those conflict that exist in the system. Okay, we'll get into the details of how we can overcome those SOD conflict. So here are the typical issues, top 6 issues that we have identified based on the projects that have been conducted and the industry surveys that we keep conducting. Here are the issues that typically comes when we do a role redesign project. So the first thing is, getting a dedicated time from the stakeholders. So it is very important that whenever we execute a project, it is important to get the time from the stakeholder, because we as technical consultants or functional consultants or subject matter experts do not have all the details. It's specific to a particular industry or the business that are involved in doing a role redesign project. So it is very important to get the committed time from the stakeholders. How do we overcome this? We have a vast library of auto enablers that reduce the turnaround time, which means we don't just reach out to the business with a problem statement, but also reach out to the business with the proposed solutions and the possible options that is possible to overcome certain issues and then involve as less time as possible from the stakeholders. Okay. Then lack of visibility from SOD point of view. So until we have been given certain audit reports from the previous years, financial years, or previous assessment that has been given to us, it's very unlikely that we get the SOD visibility, because there is a natural hindrance from a lot of people, a lot of team members, that they don't want to expose their system and the vulnerabilities that they have in the system to a third party individual or to a person who is providing their support. So we have to get into the comfort level and then understand the segregation of duty aspect in the beginning itself, so that we perform certain activities that are needed to be performed to perform role redesign sooner than the later. Okay. How do we do it? We have 600 plus native risk library available with us, which are spread across multiple geographies, multiple industries that we operate in. With the help of that, we do perform an assessment, a health check survey on the system that is available from the customer end, and then we submit those reports and identify what all things are relevant to the customer, what all SOD risk are relevant, what all functions are relevant, and then we enable those functions and the risk, and then perform the role redesign. So it means we have to invest a little more time and focus on the initial phases of the role redesign project. Now comes the issues that we normally arise at the time of the testing. So again, number 0.3 is somehow related to the stakeholder availability also. Okay. And how do we overcome anything related to testing is, we have automated test scripts that are available. We prepare it as a part of the project initiation itself, and make sure that those auto enablers or auto test scripts are run in the development system rather than taking it to the quality and figuring out that there are certain issues in the quality environment. So start doing it in an agile manner from the first stage of a project life cycle, and then getting into the later stages of a project life cycle. Okay. Now coming on to the fourth point, which is related to the missing documentation. As again, point number 4 is related to somehow point number 2. When it comes to documentation, you'll find there are not a lot of documentations available from the customer end, and even for the customers who have certain documents available, not everyone is comfortable sharing those documents. So how do we then overcome this is, using the industry best practice templates that are available from SAP and a lot of project management website as well. We also have our dedicated industry specific templates available that helps business as well as the project team to overcome such documentation related issues. And we also conduct a lot of workshop, keeping in mind the availability, the time availability from the key stakeholders. That helps in the project implementation and a successful delivery. The next would be related to the missing SOD definitions. Again, there are a lot of things which are not available from an SOD definition point of view, because different business units work in silos and their primary responsibility is to run the business. They do not have a lot of visibility into the segregation of duty aspect, and it is our duty as an implementer or as an enabler of a role redesign project to make sure that we talk to business, we tell them the importance of a role redesign project and understand what all things can, create issue. For example, a lot of time there are users who perform cross application roles. So it is important for us to make them understand, while it is important to, talk about the cross application roles, it is also important to make sure that they are not crossing the boundaries and it is within the permissible limits of the compliance structure that is assigned. Okay. Then delay in the project timelines. Again, to avoid any rework, it is important for us to make sure that we do not have any delays in the timeline of the project. How do we do it? By following all these different enablers that we talked about. Okay. The activities that we discussed in the previous slide also help us in improving the security and while redesigning the roles or while redesigning the entire authorization model at the customer end. And how do we get value out of it is we make the complex solutions simple by adapting and enabling the continuous monitoring process that I talked about. Like we start the agile methodology and we do it from the step 1 itself. Then it is very important for us to, provide single roles, which means the business role specific or business title specific role to the user, which are SOD free. Okay. Then we adapt the naming convention, the industry based specific naming conventions, the naming convention which gives us lot and most of the information by looking at the role name itself rather than getting into the detail, because it is important for a business user and the person who is approving or rejecting the role to understand the details of a role by the name itself. Then obviously the documentation is very important. You will not be able to get time from all the stakeholders. So it is important for us to have things documented in a simple yet explainable way. How do we do it is what we discussed with by enablers and templates. Then we also need to make sure that we are saving time and cost. How do we do it is when we get rid of certain segregation of duty conflict, it also helps the customer to eliminate the licensing cost by assigning the right set of roles to the user. Okay. And it also improves when we perform a redesign project, it also improves the efficiency, the automation efficiencies at a particular business unit level or different business units or sub-process level. Okay. Ultimately, our goal is to get to a stage where the roles within the organization are SOD free. Okay. Let's talk about objectives of a role redesign and the benefits that we can get from the role redesign. Okay. So the objective is basically, or the necessity is basically, it could be one of the reason could be there is an upgrade coming on from the SAP side, or there is a security enhancement that has been released by the SAP. So it is important for us to, then look at the role structure or the authorization structure that we have so that we stay up to date with the technology and we also stay compliant. Okay. The idea of doing any role redesign or design project is to provide least minimum access to the user so that we don't mitigate the risk, rather we remediate the risk in the initial phases itself. How and what it benefit is, how it benefit is, it helps in faster user access reviews. So whenever there is a full user audit or a user access review happening, it saves a lot of time because a user has got least minimum access, the minimum only those specific roles that are relevant for him or her to perform their duty. Now, fragmented role approach or role structure as per the organization needs. So it is very important for us to design those roles in such a way that the roles are SOD free and the roles are cleaner in terms of the different weightage. We will talk about that in the upcoming slide. Then job and the role mapping. Okay, so the job titles, as I said, sometimes the HR titles you can say, or the business titles should have the role mapping. So if the more seamless structure and the metrics we have designed and defined in the beginning stage itself, it is more simpler and it helps in increasing the efficiency and obviously the improved compliance by doing it. Then it is also important for us to discuss about the role structure and comply with the legal requirement, as we were discussing in the previous section, that we look at the legal requirement or the compliance requirement in the beginning of the project itself rather than waiting for the QA phase to be implemented. How do we do it is one of the important concept is providing the proper naming convention and providing the roles which are SOD free. That in turn will help us in saving a lot of cost to the company. So when it comes to the valuation or the return on investment on any redesign project, it is also important for us to show some kind of a dollar value associated with the project. So there will be a lot of saving at the customer end where they don't need to perform a specific license optimization project, but only by doing the role redesign project, they can do a lot of cost saving. Okay. So here is the different ways how we can assess the as-is state of a customer. So it can be divided into a privilege base or it can be divided into a persona base. Okay, privilege base means we look at the details from a role point of view. Persona base means we look at the different views from a user point of view. Okay, be it the total number of count of roles or total number of users that exist in the organization, the weightage of a role, how the role are being defined, whether one role has got 5 T codes and the other has got 500 T codes. So there should be an ideal weightage, and that comes as a part of a service when we do a health check of any system available in the customer landscape. Similar things also goes with the user weight. How many roles are assigned at the user level? It should not happen that one user has got only one or two roles and the other user has got 5,000 roles assigned or 1,000 roles assigned. So there should be an ideal weightage given to the user and the role level. Okay, that is directly linked to the role uses as well. So assigning the roles that are relevant and also defining certain policies and principle in the customer side to make sure that the role uses and the user licensing is optimized at a regular interval. Okay, ultimate again, the goal here is to also have the compliance structure in place to make sure the role is SOD free and the users are also SOD free. So let's discuss about the criteria and the methodologies. So the criteria of defining a role is to make sure that there is no conflict within a role, and each transaction should have fewer roles as possible, as much as possible. Okay. Why do we do it? Is to avoid the duplicacies within a role or within at the user level, so that there is, when we run a risk simulation, there are unique risk popping out because of the unique transaction, and they are not, the risk is not being multiplied just because there are duplicate roles available at the user side, or there are multiple T codes coming from different business processes. Okay. How do we do it is we identify the pattern, we do data analytics on the role that are being assigned at the user level and also the kind of transaction code that are assigned to a role, and we eliminate any unnecessary access that is being given, uh, be it a user level or a role level, and then we break down the existing role into the task specific role so that the role itself is SOD free. Then how do we do it is by working with the business analyst and by working with the business heads to make sure that there is a segregation of duty concept within the organization, within the team itself. Okay, so now we have considered a lot of things about the different activities that we perform within the role redesign. Here are list of activities that we as TRPGlobal can help you, and we have been there in this industry with over 180 years of cumulative experience from Big Four as well as the product industries coming up. We help you with the SAP Risk Advisory Service. We can help you with the system health check where we monitor how the system is being configured, how the SOD compliance framework is being monitored and configured in the system. We also help you with the overall program governance. We have services related to the SAP security, SAP Signavio, different modules of GRC, be it the access control, the process control, the risk management or audit management, and also anything and everything related to SAP IAG. Okay, so with that being said, I will open the floor for any questions that might have. Okay, I can see there is a question about how do we manage temporary role assignments during the redesign process. Very good question. So when we talk about the role redesign, it is very important for us to take care of the interim phase that comes up, uh, while certain assessments have been done or certain audit points have been shared. So it is important for us, there is an interim phase that where we need to assign certain temporary roles to the user to make sure that uh, the roles are SOD free and to show to the compliance auditor that there is a roadmap that is being followed, and the roadmap is to make sure that we are working on a role redesign project. So it is important for us that we do the temporary role assignment, keeping in mind there is a validity attached to the uh, temporary role. So there is a validity, valid from and valid to date. So it is important for us to make sure that the validity is properly assigned to the role. Any other question? Okay, one more come up. Okay, it is how do you ensure that the role redesigning does not interrupt or disrupt the business operations? Okay, so it is important, and how do we overcome these issues is, we get in touch with the business users and we make sure that whatever 2P state is going to be, we assign those temporary roles. So the second question is somehow related to the first one, where we, design certain temporary roles at a user level, and then we assign those temporary roles to avoid any disruption in the business process or business operations. By how do we do it is we first do these design those roles, we simulate those roles in the quality environment, and then we get the testing done as a part of the UAT phase itself before we make any changes in the production system. Okay, one more has come up. You can see a lot of questions coming up. How frequently should organizations review and update SAP role assignment to ensure ongoing compliance? Okay, it's a very subjective question, to be honest. And by the subjective question, I mean it depends on company to company. It varies from organization to organization, and it depends and varies from the compliance need. Some companies perform certain activities of these role assessment or role designing at a half yearly level, while other companies do it at an yearly level. Okay, but an ideal way is to assess the role assessment or role assignment at a half yearly level or half yearly period of frequency, whatever you call it as, to at the minimum. Okay, thanks, Karthik, for putting that in. So what is the impact of a role redesigning on the system audits? So as we were discussing during the webinar, that there are a lot of inputs as well as assessment points coming up from the audit as well as the compliance team. And your question is indirectly or directly related to the system audit again. So how do you, what is the impact of role redesign? It obviously impacts positively. Your role redesign impacts positively because there are two aspects which I talked about. One is related to the remediation, the other is the mitigation. So mitigation is something where you assign, a patch or a fix to an existing issue, be it in this context related to the segregation of duty conflicts. So a mitigation is something where we as an organization or controls team or business at an organization level accept certain risk because of a lot of reason, be it because there are less number of individuals, the users do not have enough bandwidth to work upon. That is one part of the puzzle that is related to mitigation control. Okay, and there are a lot of liabilities that are associated with the mitigation control because we have to follow, or the compliance team has to follow a lot of process to make sure that the mitigation controls are being created properly, they are assessed properly, there is a mitigation monitor in place, there are associated compensatory control in place. Now, to overcome all of this, the other activity that we can perform is we remediate the issue. Instead of mitigating, we remediate the issue. And how do we remediate the issue? We do it by assigning the role specific role that are SOD free. So ultimate goal is to make sure that we go green in the system audits, or we go green in the ITA, be it internal or the external audits. Okay, I hope I was able to answer questions coming in from the participant. Okay, next question from Kurtzell. At what stage should one develop and document the role metrics in the SOD role redesign project? And should role design be done before or after ERP implementation? A very good question. So I'll take the first part of the question first, which is related to at what stage and the step one should develop and document the role metrics. It is important to do this kind of activity in the development stage itself, because you then design and develop those roles, a user specific or role specific role in the development stage, so that when you do the simulation activities and we perform the UAT activities in the quality environment, we do it with the as close as real time what we are going to see in the production system. So the best practice is to perform all these activities and create a role matrix when we are in the development phase, and give that as a Bible to the security team or the security consultant to make the role according to the role matrix. Second part of the question is related to, should role design be done before or after ERP implementation? I would say again, these two projects should work hand in hand, because once you have implemented the ERP, it is not ideal way to do these activities, afterwards, because once you have done the go live of an ERP implementation project, then user actually start performing their activities, and it is by default their curiosity that they start executing anything and everything that they have got, be it intentional or unintentional. So it is important for us to perform both of these projects hand in hand. Preferably when you are in the quality stage of an ERP implementation, start your development phase of a role design project. That is actually an ideal way to perform, so that once you have completed the implementation, you are in the quality phase of the role redesign project or role design project, and you ask the users to perform those activities, perform the testing in the uh, other side. Okay, anything else? Any other question? Okay, I think we are at the top of the hour. With that being said, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your valuable time and the questions. You've been a lovely audience. You will get email from our side, which will have the link to today's meeting recording. With that being said, thank you so much for your time once again, and have a good rest of your day.